when it was said and done, I went through 4 years of studying, 4 years of telling people off and not doing anything on the weekend really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did do some things, but just when you get to that point, it's kind of like the point of no return. Like I got to get this done or else.
Welcome to another episode of the CPA Exam Experience podcast from SuperfastCPA. I'm Nate, and in today's interview, you're going to hear me talk with Mitch. So, Mitch has a really relatable story. He was always disciplined, did good in school. When it came time to do the CPA exams, he got his review course and just assumed that, okay, I'm going to put in the time, work through each lesson, do the practice problems, and it'll be a lot of hard work, but that's what you do, and then I'll just pass these exams. And it just didn't work out that way. He was putting in the work, being very dedicated to the point that he worked full-time in accounting, but he was also a football coach on the side. And so after a couple years, he decided, okay, this has to be the year. So he actually had to quit his job as a football coach to focus on the CPA exams. Somewhere around that time, saw one of the Superfast CPA YouTube ads about our free study trainings. He watched one of the trainings, had a few light bulbs go off that how he could improve his own process. And as you'll hear in the interview as to what those specifics were, that kind of helped him finally bridge the gap and make the difference. And so, it's something I say all the time. These exams, they are not just a matter of raw intelligence, but at the same time, it's also not a matter of just putting in a ton of study time. There has to be this aspect of strategic improvement or just strategy in general in your study approach, in your daily process. And so on that note, before we get into the interview with Mitch, our free study training webinars, that's the first thing that Mitch saw, and pretty much anyone you've heard on these interviews. So these free 1-hour webinars, we go through the 6 key ingredients of any successful CPA study process. So no matter what review course you're using, you apply these strategies. And if you're doing all 6 throughout your process, it's honestly hard to go wrong. So these trainings are free. They take 1 hour. It's a webinar format. The link to those trainings will be down in the description of this video or in the episode description if you're just listening to the podcast version of this. And so with that out of the way, let's get into the interview with Mitch.
Yeah, I periodically go on and see a few success stories. Yeah, and they're pretty motivating. Like
Okay.
if you're someone who is just starting out or has currently in the process right now of like studying for the CPA, yeah, it's motivating from front to back, whatever leg of the journey you're on.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so, and I guess going along with that, if you've heard some, that's basically how this will be. We'll just talk through your study journey from start to finish. So at the time you filled out the little form thing to be on here, you were done with 3. Is that still the case?
So I'm actually done right now. I passed the CPA back in July of 2022. So
Nice.
uh, I I thought I did email you. I should have if I didn't, but to let you know. But really, a
Okay.
lot of the credit has to go to you, Nate, because uh, you know, in terms of the context and how you simply can get the information, and that's how I can put it. Just quickly get the information in your head and have that be a point of origin and have that be in the back of your head as you're going through the chapters and each section of the CPA, whatever study unit or study material you're using, whether it's Gleim or Becker. Um, but I found ever since I added your service that it's just been a great help and quite frankly the reason why I passed.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Um, so did you have our pro course videos? Kind of sounds like you adopted our whole kind of strategy, like how to study and everything. Did you have the
Yes.
videos that walk you through each part of the study process?
Yes, and I researched it a little bit and saw your
Okay.
options through the email and through all the videos on YouTube, as you're maybe watching a video and then you see your commercial. So
Yeah.
I went on and just saw all your options and just went with the best one because at the point in my CPA journey, I had just had it and just wanted to go with the best and see what I could do with it. Um, so and I went through all the videos, I went through all the modules, and it turned out well for me.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So let's go back to the very beginning then. Like when you very first started studying for the exams, what was it like? Like how long ago was it? Just, yeah, let's start from the beginning.
So I started my CPA journey back in the beginning of 2018, and I used Gleim as my study provider. Was going through each module, each video, and I thought that's how it was supposed to be. And then, you get through one section and you schedule your test date for 2 months out, and because that's what they recommended. So I'm really just doing what the study provider recommends for me. And I get to the test day, and as you say in the videos, the test is completely what is not like the studying that you do in your review to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
The study provider can prepare you for um, the most it can, to an extent, and then the test will just be completely different, especially the simulations. And I got a few of test scores back, so I went through regulation, then I also went through audit, and I wasn't passing. I was getting probably in the scores of 60 to 70, and I was really going through my head like, okay, what's wrong? Like, how am I not passing these? Is there something wrong? Like, am I not doing something correctly? Am I missing something? And that was pretty much all of 2018 and really into 2019 as well. And then, so it was both those years, and I was really taking a lot of time in between tests. I was working full time. My career was just starting in corporate accounting. I also coached football on the side,
Mm.
so there was a lot of things going. So with football, I was basically coaching 24/7 right after work in the fall, both of those years. And I got to a point in the end of 2019 going into 2020 in the pandemic year, like, man, am I really gonna get this done? And, like, what am I doing wrong? And again, halfway through, obviously the pandemic hit, March, we were home, and I really hunkered down and said, man, like, this has to be the year I pass because I'm home now more, and I have more time to study, even though I'm working full time. I'm not really, and then that was also the year I quit coaching because I wanted to really focus on the CPA,
Mm-hmm.
get it done. And I came across your service probably in the summer of 2020 and really looked it over. And even before then, I had seen your commercials, I had seen your advertisements. And with kind of some of those, with all commercials, all advertising, you immediately think to the average consumer or customer looking at it,
Mm-hmm.
it's too good to be true, or is this really going to work for me? And really, that was me for the greater half of 2020 and at the end of 2019. So I could have started your service back in the end of 2019, but I waited 6 months after the fact and finally caved in and bought your service with the Pro Series and just started working through that. Um, but to answer your initial question here, that was my journey up to the point of getting the Superfast CPA. Is It was really just going through the simulation of the study provider Gleim, which I did, uh, and getting my test date, but then also through through all those modules, all that studying, I felt like I still wasn't getting the context that I needed, um, and that could really hone in on my weaknesses and tell me what I was really doing wrong. And that's where Superfast CPA, I think, filled in the gaps with that.
Okay. Um, so a few questions about that time period. So you go to work and then you're coaching football. So when did you study?
So I usually studied at night. I tried to get up in the morning to study, but that was hard in the beginning, because I had to be to work early, and that of course was when I had to actually be at work. I actually work remote now. I've been remote for about a year and a half, so that's been nice. So I usually studied at night for about 2 to 3 hours. Made myself dinner, and then I usually went to bed around 10 or 11, and then do it all over again. So I did have a pretty routine study habit through the non-football related months. But once it got to football, it was just like, okay, I really don't have time. And unfortunately, back then, I just put the CPA on the back burner and thought I could still pass. And that, when it comes to the actual CPA process, that's not the case. Like, it has to
Yeah.
be a disciplined approach every day. You're sitting down, and whether you like it or not, you just have to do it.
Right. Yeah, that's a funny thing. Like, I think a lot of people find that out the hard way because a lot of people kind of go through college even, and it's just really not that hard. You can kind of show up to class, like you do your homework, obviously, but it's just not that hard. But then the CPA exam is just you can't just kind of do this halfway thing because you're intelligent. Yeah, it just doesn't work. A lot of people just get wrecked
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
CPA exams for sure.
Yeah, you have to make it your top priority. Anything else and the other thing I hated too, but that was necessary, was just, I don't know how many times I told people to, okay, I'm busy this weekend, I can't do anything. Like, I've said this to you before, like, I can't do it. That was the hardest thing ever. And eventually it
Hmm.
got through people's minds, like, okay, Mitch has got to just be away and, like, no one bother him, sort of thing. So,
Yeah, and I mean that kind of sacrifice. That's one thing if it's paying off, if you're passing, but like for your first 2 years, if you just kind of keep missing the passing score, that gets really hard because eventually you start to think, why am I doing this at all? If I'm sacrificing nights and weekends and it's not even working.
yeah, and to add one more thing to add to that journey. So I had taken regulation twice in that time span, and also audit twice. So in a 2 year time span, I failed 4 exams, and for those two I started. Those were important because regulation and audit, I didn't start my career, and nor have I gone into public accounting. So taxes and audit were brand new to me.
Mm.
So I was truly learning it from the ground up. Well, not really, because of some of the class I took in college, but
Yeah.
aside from that, it was just, you know, learning as I go.
Right. Yeah, and I think if you've never worked in audit at all, I think audit could easily be the hardest exam just because it's, I don't know. So much of it sounds the same, but obviously it's not the whole exam worth of questions. A lot of it just sounds so similar. Anyways, and if you've never worked in audit, it's
Yeah.
so okay, so when you start studying the first time, the first section, and you kind of go through the program, you're doing everything you feel like you're supposed to be with Gleim. Um, Once you got through and you're close to test day, did it feel like I have no idea if I'm prepared, or were you kind of like, I should pass? I mean, I should pass this because I've done everything I was supposed to do. I went through every lesson. And was the failing score like a big shock, or did you just kind of have this sense of, I'm not sure anything really got in my head over the last few months?
The first time I took regulation and audit was, I felt like I did everything, but I also felt like I didn't do everything because there was still some information to still learn. Regulation and audit have a breadth of information. There's so much to know, there's so much to memorize, and for a person that's hasn't had that experience in taxes and audit before, it's just almost going to feel overwhelming if you don't have the right context in place when you're going in the information for the first time and module by module, because whatever study provider you have, I feel like they're not going to explain the information in detail for you. They're already assuming that you know it based on college and all the credits that you had to get to even sit for the CPA. So for the first two attempts, that's how I felt like. But then the second attempts, since I went back and tried to work through my weak areas based on the letter that they send you saying, okay, here's your weak areas in order to pass, based on you compared to other candidates who did pass. I felt like that second time I had done everything and I still wasn't passing. So, and that again was at the end of 2019. So I was really just confused. And, aside from that, I was, again, working full time. So at that point, I was just really overwhelmed. And that's when I was like, okay, there's got to be some other way that people are doing to pass. So I have to supplement my study provider with Superfast CPA. Like that, all roads led to Superfast CPA, really.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So about that, did you watch our free training, or was it like what made you decide to try our program or whatever? Like add it to what you were doing. Was it you watched the free training and it made a lot of sense, or was it more just I'm just gonna try this because I don't know what else to do type thing?
I honestly wanted to try Superfast CPA. Number one, just to try it, and then number two, the way honestly you talk and the way you teach it, or the way you were advertising it, you came across as a very calm and just straight to the point person. No gimmicks, nothing, no catch. Just here's the information you need to pass. And the biggest thing for me too was I think I remember you mentioned when you go in on test day, all you need to do is just pass you just need to do enough to pass it. You don't have to know everything, which I was doing for those 2 years. And that's what I really uncovered about after I was even just studying for a week with Superfast CPA was like, you truly don't need to know everything. You don't need to be a professor of this. You just need to do enough
Yeah.
to pass it. And, but yeah, like, as, to, joining the Superfast CPA, yeah, it was just really how you presented the detail, even in the ads. And yeah, I just wanted to try it. It was just kind of a shot in the dark, but it worked.
Okay. So yeah. So okay, you get our program. You watch the pro course videos, and then I think obviously the main shift is like instead of watching every lecture and reading the textbook first, you just go straight into the questions. Was that kind of the biggest difference in study strategy, or what in your mind kind of made the difference from our strategies for you?
Yeah, what that honestly was a big difference, just going right into, planting the seeds first, right? As you were mentioning in the training course, you go through the notes first, you and the multiple choice questions, you get the context, then you go back into the module, whatever you're doing, or the videos, and then as you're watching it or reading it, you have that in the back of your mind, that context, and then you're pointing out as you're reading, okay, that's where this information is. And then what I would do is you're highlighting that information right there or starring it and going back to it after you've done your full review once you get closer to test day. The way I was doing it before was just doing what the program told me to do. You watch the video first, you do some multiple choice, and then you read, or sorry, you do the video, you read, and then you do the multiple choice. And then somehow you remember that as you're going through other modules leading up to test day, and then somehow you're supposed to know all that stuff that you learned a month or two ago, 2 months later, a week before you sit for the test. So your strategy with planting the seeds, going to the multiple choice first to understand what you need to know and how you need to know it through the context really put a light bulb over my head like, wow, this is really like easy to learn now. For one, why didn't
Yeah.
I think about this? And like, I should have been doing this all along. I wasted so much time.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing is like some of the ideas just seem so obvious, but of course, that's not how most people study. Just because I don't know, you don't know any better. And that's also how college worked for the most part. It's kind of like lecture, textbook, quizzes, exams, you know. So within a week or so, it felt like it was immediately easier, or you could tell it was more effective.
Yeah, and not only that, but I felt myself being more engaged and willing to sit in a certain location for hours on end. And I'm not a person that can sit still,
Hmm.
or be in a spot for a long time. Like I have to get up after 2 or 3 hours, whereas after doing CPA, super fast CPA for an hour or a week or two, I was able to sit there for, you know, gosh, even on the weekend, like a Saturday or Sunday, I could sit there the whole day,
Hmm.
and do it. Like that's how much I wanted to get it done and just have it out of my head.
Right. And I think what you're kind of saying also is our approach is very, again, it seems so obvious, but you should never be really sitting there for long, just staring at your computer for longer than like 3 or 5 minutes. Like you're always doing something if you're actively studying. So it is a lot easier to stay engaged. And, like the whole thing, when you're busy, time goes by faster. If you're just sitting there trying to watch this lecture that's super boring and you zone out every 3 to 5 minutes, um,
Yeah,
an hour takes a long time and it's just really, really boring. It's not like doing the
yeah,
questions is like exciting or anything, but it's just totally different when you're like actively learning.
yeah. And the worst thing is just spinning your wheels and having that feeling of just doubt and dread. And then, I would go to work the next morning and just keep thinking about it, just like, man, I got to get this done. When you get it done, and that's part of it too. Like I changed my study habits, not only um, how long I studied for, but also the time of day. Like I would then study them. I did what you recommended, like studying in the morning, getting it done, and that way it's kind of like making your bed. You've already gotten something done for the day, and that you can feel good about, and that you don't have to worry about. And then I mean, I would still study a little bit in the evenings, but not as much as I did.
Mm-hmm.
I would usually probably do like flashcards in the evening just to kind of reiterate a lot of the things I learned or relearned in the morning to solidify that comprehension.
Yeah. So, right. So it just makes, like you just said, it just makes when you nail it in the morning and you're more or less kind of done, or whether or not you study in the evenings for a little bit, you just feel good about before you even start work for the day. You just feel good about what you've done that morning. And so it just makes yeah, it's not weighing on your mind, like you said. You go to work, whatever that is, and then you're just kind of dreading it in the back of your mind, like, okay, even if I have to work till 6 tonight, I've got to gear up and study for 4 hours after work. And so you're just dreading that, and you're just kind of like, that makes you tired alone, like just that added stress throughout the day. So it's just
Right.
like a constant mental battle versus just it's in the history books by 8 a.m.
Yeah. And that's truly the best feeling that you can have when you're on an odyssey like I was. You go through when it was said and done, I went through 4 years of studying. 4 years of telling people off and not doing anything on the weekend really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did do some things, but just when you get to that point, it's kind of like the point of no return. Like I got to get this done or else.
Yep. Yeah, and that is a thing too, like I've said that before. Everyone has to get to that point. Like
Hmm.
that point where you're like, okay, I am so sick of, and it doesn't sound like you were half-assing it or anything. It's just like, I'm so sick of floundering with this. I am going to figure this out and like get this done.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of has to get to that point. So after, yeah, so basically three or so years until you started this way, what was getting your first passing score like?
Oh man, I couldn't believe it at first. Uh, I do those rituals where, what was in the past, like people did like the no look thing, like
Hmm.
they had that little eye icon in NASBA
Yeah.
to go look. So I did that. Um, and I had to look at it maybe 5 or 6 times, like like how, like I finally passed it. And I don't know what I forgot what I did afterwards, but I just couldn't believe it because at that point it had been almost 2.5, 3 years, and it felt really good. And then from that point
Yeah.
on, I just implemented all the all the tactics that you describe in Superfast CPA, and ultimately, it ended good. So, but yeah, I'll always remember that first passing score. It was something to behold.
Yeah, and just a big. I mean, you said that switching to these strategies, you could immediately kind of tell it was just working better and made the process easier. But obviously, that's great. It's like, okay, but am I actually going to pass? And so that first passing score is just a confirmation, right? That like, okay, now I have this down. I can push forward, and then like the motivation. I'm guessing the motivation just comes a lot easier, just because really it's just I got to do this every day and I'm going to pass.
Yes, and my score was a 83 on regulation, where before I was getting 60s to 70s, so it was a
Yeah.
huge jump.
What about, so you did the 2 hours in the morning. Did you use our study tools, kind of like the mini sessions idea throughout the day?
Yeah, so I would go through the multiple choice, any new detail first, and work through those in the morning, and then and read your notes. And that was also commonplace too. Like during the day after that, was constantly reading your notes throughout the day. I made binders, the three-hole punch, and just going through them every day, highlighting key points, and then along with that, doing the flashcards, doing the mini quizzes, and I uh, thought those mini quizzes were so helpful. They're so simplified, and again, we go back to your simplified approach. Here's the information that you need to know, not necessarily every little detail.
Mm-hmm.
Especially what Gleim was teaching me. Gleim tends to give you way more information than you need. Here's just the detail you need to pass.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So, I do like, that is true. Gleim, they really, I mean, their explanations are really good. But on the other hand, there's like never an easy question on Gleim. Like even the most, you know, small conceptual single idea type question, they make it pretty complicated, or, the explanations are always like 3 or 4 paragraphs.
Yeah.
So I think our approach works really well with Gleim because you learn so much from their explanations. But I think it can also be it's harder than the real exam for sure. Like across the board, their questions are more difficult. But I don't know. It's kind of a good and bad type thing.
No, I agree with you. There's no sugarcoating it. Like there's no shortcuts at Gleim. They give you all the detail and just assume that you're gonna learn everything, and then they have like, okay, yeah, sure, people pass through their program, but how many of them truly like grasp everything and
Hmm.
put that to use in their profession, right? After passing the CPA.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes I'll hear that from someone who's clearly new at the process. Like if they've watched our webinar and they're like, well, it's almost like they have an ethical issue with just study the questions, like study to pass. Um, and I would argue basically what you said is like, well, okay, like that's kind of what accounting is. I mean, you come up with some new issue, you just have to find enough information to solve your issue, for whether it's for your what you're doing at your job or for a client.
Hmm.
It's not, you don't need to go back to school and take a whole class on the overarching topic. You just, like, this is about finding the information you need. That's really what the whole thing is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your direct contact, your boss is not going to care really how much detail you provide as long as it gets to the point, and because everything's on a time budget these days,
Hmm.
so you know the
Yeah.
lesser the better.
Yeah. So, so you mentioned the flashcards. So did you kind of just do that the way it's explained in the pro course?
Yeah, just methodically going through it and making that a discipline, making that religious, and putting it in a way that what you're talking about. Just because there's ways that the study program or whatever you're doing, in books, they explain it a certain way to where they know that they've explained it well to you. So it's important to just make sure you put it in words that you know how to know it, and do it as simple as possible. That's how you're best going to know it, and not really rely on that study program really, because when it comes to test day, you have such a limited time, and frankly, you're going to feel a little nervous and a little panicked, and in the back of your mind, you just want those easy mnemonics or however you've written those note cards to quickly remember, and so you can jot it down. And because what I did before the test even started, I would, because you get the scratch pad, I would
Mm-hmm.
write down all these formulas and everything that I pretty much learned from the flashcards, and wrote it all down within that time limit before I even started the test. So I had it all there. So I try to think of all these ways, time management wise, that could help me with the test. And that's part of it too, that you teach in the Superfast CPA, like how best can you time manage yourself wisely. Because if you take both of those things, making it as simplified as possible, and time management, both of those hand in hand, that's pretty much the formula to pass the CPA exam. It really is.
Yeah, yes. This is going to end up being in back-to-back episodes probably, but the call I did yesterday, I was kind of explaining that idea, like every segment of the study process. So how you approach and reverse engineer, dissect MCQs. If you're strategic about that, that gives you a lot of advantages. If you practice sims the same way, how you take things and capture the understanding with the flashcards. You're nailing it 2 hours in the morning, so you don't have to fight yourself. So like the 2 hours you do spend are more effective. So you're like layering all these advantages together, and yeah, what I say in those videos is like every part of the process matters, and there's like synergy between all the different strategies and like how your daily routine. It makes it like hard to go wrong if you're just doing it all. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. And like in the middle of all those synergies is like this the simplicity. Make it as simple as possible for yourself so you're not confused and you're not spinning your wheels.
mm-hmm.
Because again, you have limited time in the day. You're working. If you have kids, you're tending to all of this stuff. It gets overwhelming if you don't make it as simplified as possible.
Yeah. So the football thing, was it one of your kids you're coaching? Was this like Pee Wee or high school or what was it?
It was high school, so I
Okay.
was a former kicker and place kicker in college, at Ferris State University in Big Rapids, Michigan. But this was for my high school, and I was a place kicker there, in high school. So I was a special teams coach, for the kickers and the punters and the long snappers,
Mm-hmm.
and but so I was kind of on my own, in terms of the other coaching staff members. But it was a full time position. I got paid pretty good, for what it was. But it was 2 to 3 hours, and it's or not 3 hours, but it was really 2 hours. But that high school was about half an hour, 45 minutes away from where I lived. So you get done with practice, you're driving 45 minutes home. You don't get home until like almost 8 o'clock, and then you still have to make
Yeah.
dinner, and it just wasn't going to work out, studying late at night like that, and then you have to get up for work at 6 and do it all over again.
Right. Have you gone back to that now that you're done?
I do eventually, not yet. I actually did. So my wife gave birth to our daughter. So I'm a father now.
Congrats.
Um,
Yeah.
yep. So
So
she's
after you've passed?
so
That
after I
happened after
passed.
you passed?
Yeah,
Awesome.
so she
Yeah.
so she was born June 25th, 2022, and then I actually found out that I passed my final section, which was BEC, about 2 weeks later. So
Oh, what a
I'm like,
huge relief.
yeah, yeah, you're not kidding. So she's 8 months old now. She's doing good. She's almost crawling, but yeah, you think about that's another element too. You want to you want to make it as simplified as possible so that you can, make room and get this done for all the things that are coming in your life, like with kids, with, a new job, or, getting married, or buying a new house. Like, you want to enjoy this stuff. Like there was one, like the 2018, 2019 summers, even 2020, I was studying nonstop in the summers,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of daydreaming and looking forward to, man, I can, I can't wait to finally have a summer where I just don't have to read a multiple choice question or answer A and B,
Yeah.
or go through a simulated exam. So I'm just glad it's finally done.
Yeah, so one thing I'm always curious about, like especially someone with your kind of story where you had a few years where you were putting in a bunch of time, it wasn't working, And so like from your wife's perspective, let's say, she sees you studying all the time, like you said, you had 2 summers where you couldn't even do anything, and then you like adopt our approach. So like from her perspective, it probably didn't seem like you were studying nearly as much as before. Did she ever say like what's this? I don't know. Did she ever comment on that? Just the
Yeah,
comparison between the two.
yeah. I mean, 'cause she was fully invested, as was I, and we kind of, bounce conversations off one another. And I showed her the binders that I created and showed them, like, okay, here's the service I'm using. Like, this is gonna help me. And she definitely did notice, like, she number one, she noticed like the improvement in my mood. Like, I'm actually getting this information now, because usually in the past, when I wasn't fully invested and fully getting into the information, and didn't understand the context, I I was kind of blowing off steam afterwards, and because it,
Mm-hmm.
it was just frustrating. Um,
Yeah.
so she definitely noticed, like, okay, now he's finally getting it, like this, and it's a lot more simplified. And she definitely noticed too. I think it was the second or third section I passed. I think it was FAR, and I passed it in probably 3 months. Whereas the other sections, I mean, it took me like a year.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, "Man, this is really working for you, isn't it?" I was like, "Yeah, I've never passed a section in only 3 months. Like, this is amazing," sort of thing. So that's probably where it was the most, like, just the difference in time, uh,
Yep.
and that was hugely beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's awesome to hear. Right. Just a lot of positive things happening versus no nights and weekends. Your whole summers, you're studying, and you're still not passing. It's hard to be in a good mood if that's like what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just tough.
Yeah. Let's see. So you mentioned the weekend. So you would just try to just go longer, like do what, 4, 6 hours on the weekends usually.
Yeah, so and I was going to get to that. So during the week, I would try to get at least 2 or 3 hours in the morning. So I'd wake up at 5 a.m. Before work, and then on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, I would try to put in, gosh, 6 to 7 hours a day, uh, or even, and once I got closer to the test date, really try, like, reserve the whole weekend and just study the whole weekend, nonstop.
Okay.
And I think it came to a point where some people I told off, like, were underestimating how long I could study for, because that just became so routine. Like, that was
Mm,
just part of me at that point. And I was so used to it. So that once I got to test day, those 4 hours that you have for the test, that was nothing for me. That went by with like a breeze. I called them like celebration test day, because that was your day to like prove yourself and you just get through it.
yeah.
Because that's what we called it in football when I kicked in college. You go through practice throughout the week, and that's your hard working time to get through the week so that you can get to game day. That's celebration Saturday. That's your day to just celebrate the week, sort of thing. So I just took that mindset from really football and put it into Superfast CPA, the CPA study process, and just got it done that way.
Yeah. That's really cool. And so, okay, I kind of the last study topic. I really want to ask you who your favorite NFL kicker of all time is, but I'll save that.
Okay.
Um, uh, anyways, last thing, your final review. How long would you leave for that? And did you follow kind of our 48-hour cram session strategy, or just what was your final review like?
Yeah, I left it up to at least a week or even 2 weeks to based on the section. So regulation, I would say regulation and FAR were the two sections that I tried to free up as much time for my final review. So that was the definitely 2 week time span, just because of the amount of information, just the memorization and the concepts and the context that you have to know. And then audit and BEC were just probably 1 week, just because I was more familiar with audit after all the time I had spent with it, and then BEC. I did have a lot of that cost accounting experience that is in BEC from corporate accounting. So it's based on, I guess, preference, and then also how much experience you have with each section. That's number one. And then yeah, I did do the 48-hour cram and thought that worked out really well. And you kind of have to do it just in a sweeping motion. Don't really focus too much on a specific topic, even if it's your weak area. Just kind of skim everything, go through every topic, do a lot of simulated exams, which I took your information that was supplement and applied it to my simulated exams that the study provider gives you, which really helped too. As well with the flashcards, and then day of, uh, doing your flashcards on your drive, doing the audio notes in the car. And that's one thing I forgot to mention to you throughout this whole process was I was constantly listening through the audio notes, and following. If I didn't have my binders with me, I was doing that in the car. And then at night before I went to bed every night, I was doing the binders with, following along pages wise with the audio in, and that
Okay.
really cemented my learning. Uh,
Yeah. So we just released a new study tool in the app that does that, because that kept getting mentioned on these interviews. People would either read the notes on the phone and play the audios, or some version of what you just said. And every person that's done it, well, yeah. So they were being interviewed for this podcast, so it means they passed. But they said that they felt like that was probably the best retention thing that they did, was reading and listening. So anyways, just last week we finally got that put in the app. I don't know, we're calling them the follow along notes. So you can just
okay.
press play and it plays there's like a highlighter on the word, so the text goes and it just does it for you while you're hearing the audio.
Okay.
Anyways, now that you're done,
That's
you'll never use it, but it just is that idea in one tool.
yeah, that's excellent. That's going to be a nice feature. And it's funny too when you mentioned in the past, like it's funny how you remember songs like from Taylor Swift or some other big time
Yeah.
name, and that just made all the much sense to me too. Like how can we remember something that happened 10 years ago, like from a certain song or some TV show, but then we can't remember how a certain formula works. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, just constant repeat exposure. It's how you memorize
Yeah.
songs you're not even interested in memorizing. So the audios, it's not fun to listen to those over and over and over. But yeah, it's just kind of like the idea of, okay, you've committed thousands of dollars to this process. I mean, lots if you consider your college degrees. Your nights and weekends, or time, just tons of time. So you should be willing to do any little thing that gives you an advantage, which using your phone, instead of music for a few months, you listen to audio notes, or instead of scrolling Instagram or TikTok, read the notes, take quizzes, just get this over with.
Right. And, to your credit, I also have to say that Gleim had a very intensive audio system too, where you could follow along in the notes. But as you would expect, highly detailed and structural. Your audio notes were just straight to the point and, no nonsense. And that's what I love too. Like your audio notes were even better than, Gleim's. So just to put more, eggs in your basket, like, your system was just, spot on in my opinion.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I love hearing that, obviously. And I mean, most of all, though, I'm glad it worked. So, what did you, or I don't know. I mean, I know what you're going to say, but what was it like getting that last score, realizing you're finally done after all this time?
Yeah, it felt amazing. Actually, I was in my bedroom, and it was at night, and I was just, I knew the score was coming out that night. Um, you know, Lydia, my daughter, she had, obviously just been born 2 weeks ago, and it was almost poetic. Like I was supposed to be there at that specific time, at that specific moment, and I read off the score. Actually, that's right. I didn't read off the score myself. My wife did because I was just
Mm,
too nervous. It had been so long. I didn't think the Odyssey would be done, and she read it off, and said I passed it. I had a 79, and I don't know. Again, I think I cried a little bit, and again it was that night, so I couldn't really do a lot. But at that
yeah.
moment, I wish I was outside running around, doing whatever. It's just one of those feelings that you just truly can't believe, just because it's been so long. It's just been a long journey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the sense of relief is just, yeah, I mean, there's nothing like it. It's not like I don't know, it's not like your deeply most happiest moment. I mean, close, but the sense of relief for just this huge burden and then knowing you'll never have to study CPA again. Yeah, it's just,
And that was
yeah.
one of my main points. How you when you start a super fast CPA, you're supposed to write down all your motivation quotes, or just
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to write, to pass it. And one of my quotes was, I just want to pass this to improve my future family situation one day. To be in a better spot than I am now, and just put this behind me, just to say that I did it. I put all my effort into something, and I didn't quit, and I got through it. And yeah, I just remembered that, and it just came full circle at that moment.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I'm happy for you. And so last question I always ask, even if it's stuff we already talked about, what would be your three biggest tips to, you know, someone in your shoes 2 years ago who's still just kind of struggling trying to figure out an effective process?
I would figure out first off, whether you want to continue and keep putting in the effort, because I definitely felt that at one point. Is this truly, number one, what I want to do, and do I want to keep going with this? So find that inner motivation. Number two is, find if the current system that you're working with isn't working to your standard, or if you think there's something better, don't be afraid to, reach out to Superfast CPA, and try it out, and see if it works for you. There's no, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work out, then you're back in your old way of studying and the old process. So see if it works, and then just third is just like, once you have Superfast CPA, or any other service supplemental wise, see if it works. See if it helps you to achieve, just that first passing score. Especially in my shoes, where I truly, hadn't gotten anything passed in 2 years. I mean, that's highly detrimental to just your motivation, and
Yeah.
just your successfulness, later on in life. Um, and then, finally, just, don't give up. Just keep working at it, because eventually, if you truly do work hard enough, work does pay off, or hard work does pay off. I had numerous examples of that, growing up, from seeing that from other people. In my football career too. I was injured one year in my college career, and I missed a number of games, because of it, and it was hard. But I had to get through it. I had to go through, kind of physical therapy and all that good stuff, and um, I transfer that on to, other things, like right now, with, studying and everything else. I actually too, have applied this to the CMA exam. So I
Mm.
actually got through uh, the second part of the CMA exam just recently, this past Monday, and I did pass the first part back in October, and I started the program back in actually right after I passed the CPA, because I thought like all of this information is still in my head. Why not? Let's get through this. And frankly, I applied all the principles and training and all the details you go through in your program to the CMA process, and I did it, exactly. Like I went through the multiple choice first and just did all that, and it works on the CMA as well. So anybody that does the CMA too, it works there.
That's awesome. We should try to. I get asked that a lot. Do you have like the study tools for the CMA? And I mean, we don't, but I should. I don't know how many people take it, or if it would be like. Anyways, I should look into that. Yeah, just having the same set of study tools just for the. How many exams are there on that? Is it 2?
It's just two. So,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's, not to put the CMA down, but like when you just come off the CPA in 4 sections after 4 years, it's nothing compared to the CPA.
And so you're already done with that as well. You've since the CPA, you've already finished that as well.
So I'm waiting on my score for the second part. So that comes out in
Awesome.
6 weeks. So I'll know my result in April, midway.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that I pass that, and just after that, I'm gonna be all done. Like
Yeah.
for a while. It'll be done.
So I guess I forgot to ask. Did you go 4 for 4 after you switched over and started studying this way?
The only one I didn't go for, didn't pass on the first is FAR, but I passed on the second attempt. But
Nice.
so almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was again just a testament to your course, and just trying it out and seeing if it works. And it's not something that should be missed. If you're going on, like for me, it was like I was just watching YouTube videos, and I found, yours was a commercial. It just must have found me. You know how like weird algorithms
Oh
in
yeah.
the video,
Hmm.
it just found me, and that was after like the 10th attempt, and I was like, might as well try it. Like I've skipped over you well enough. I'm just gonna go all in, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I guess that leads us to the just yeah. Again, congrats on being done. I'm glad you found us. I'm glad it made a difference. And yeah, just congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, thank you for uh, providing that program and being that help to people who are truly lost. Like they wander the desert and are wondering like what's going on, like what's wrong with the way I'm approaching things. Like even for someone that might have done really well in college and high school in accounting, and they get to the real world, they get to actually working full time. There's a lot of things that college that doesn't teach you. Yeah,
Hmm.
once you're working professionally, it's all on you to get things done and to time manage effectively. So any help that is out there, try it out. We have uh, all the resources that we could possibly ever need in this life right now with the internet and just everything available. So just don't doubt it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's I've mentioned this a few times, but like, running this business, there's all kinds of things I've had to learn, and it's amazing how I think a lot of people, like you said, you see a YouTube video for some course, and of course there's a lot of scams like how to make money YouTube videos you see, but just courses. Like if I need to know how to do something, like how do I set up a web server or all these different things I need to know how to do. You can find somebody who has a course who's done what you need to know how to do, and in a couple hours, it's just like months of stuff that would have taken you trial and error. You just go past all that just by, okay, this person did what I'm trying to do, and they did, they have all their experience, however long it took them. It's just the biggest shortcut. So yeah, I mean, I buy courses all the time on all kinds of
Right.
stuff because it's just it's like the best hack there is. Like someone's done something you want to know how to do. Don't spend 2 years on trial and error. Like in two
Yeah.
hours, you watch somebody's course and you get all the secrets.
Yeah, and like the worst thing you can do is just quit and then realize, oh wow, like Nate could have helped me pass in just a matter of like a year. or even less. Like that's really all it takes. That's that easy.
Yes, and right. That's the thing is like it has nothing to do with like it's hard to not take it personal if you're studying forever and you keep failing. But like in your example, I mean, basically every example we've had on the podcast, really it's just you were just shifting how you spent time studying, and then it just makes all the difference. It's you
Hmm.
still your same IQ, so it had nothing to do with that. It was all about your strategy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Uh, and just tweaking a few things. Not really reinventing the wheel, but just maybe more efficiently getting it to roll better,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep. Well, yeah. So I don't want to take up much more of your time, but being a kicker, are there any? Who's your favorite NFL kicker?
It's got to be Adam Vinatieri, hands down. I
Okay.
grew up with Adam Vinatieri, in the Super Bowls, the two Super Bowls he won at a last second field
Yep.
goal,
Mm-hmm.
and just the type of person he is. It seems like he's a pretty low key, confident guy who's pretty humble and uh, just kind of takes it with a grain of salt. Every game he was in, um, and just wins it for the team. But and he said he had a lucrative career, with the Patriots and then the Colts. My wife's a huge Colts fan, so it was funny, Uh, she would always kind of joke around with me like, Mitch, it's your guy. He's coming out there for a 50-yard field goal, sort of thing. And it's actually funny too. At our wedding, you know how you can do like the video, you can pay someone to do a video for you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so my in-laws paid for Adam Vinatieri to do a video to talk about, oh Mitch, I heard you were a kicker in college, sort of thing, and so it
That's
was really
awesome.
cool. Yeah. So, but I have a number of kickers that I looked up to. I played soccer all my life, kind of growing up until high school. Then I switched to trying out football kicking, and that turned into a scholarship, and kind of the rest is history. But I didn't like it early on. I grew into it, um, and it's definitely worked out. So it's taught me a lot.
Yeah, that's
It's
cool.
uh, just again a lot of that I took from sports to what I do now. It's kind of again come full circle.
So did you have any in college? Like, did you have any games that came down to you, like one kick?
In high school, I did. In college, no. However, in college, there was one game at the very end of the season that that game was riding on whether we were going to outright win conference or not, and like have a good standing in the playoffs for Division Two. Um, but yeah, there was one game in high school where I went out and nailed a 45-yard field goal to win to. Uh,
Wow.
I think it was, yeah, to win the game, and
In high school, that's big. That's a big kick in high school.
yeah, and back then, not so much now because you got more programs for football kickers to get
Mm-hmm.
more notice, to get more scholarships in college. Back then, it was kind of like, wow, like you're a good kicker in high school. Like, where did you come from, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
I just took what soccer gave me, with the gift of kicking, and then just converted that to football, and the coaches loved it. So,
Yeah, I mean, in high school, no one even did that. No one even attempted a field goal, like an extra point. It was,
right,
we actually, my senior year, we had a German exchange student, and
okay,
he was, a big soccer player. And so he could kick the football, but like very little control. But there were a few blowout games where the coach put him in to like kick a field goal on a fourth down and anyways, but other than that, like all the previous years, no one even tried it in high school, from what I
oh.
remember.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when actually kicking a field goal was actually 2 points instead of 1 point,
Mm.
like for extra points.
Yeah,
So yeah, so weird times those were back then, and I'm just glad that it's now becoming more like the kicker's getting more respect now. Maybe not so much as a kicker would want, but getting more of that. So
yeah. Well, it is crazy. I mean, I think about that in about football in general. The whole game is, passing, running the ball, and then like so many games, especially the NFL. I mean, it's so common because it's so close. There's so much parity. Comes down to a kick, and it's I don't know, like it matters a lot. It's so many games come down to the kicker. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, ice in the veins. I can't imagine what's running through those guys' heads, but then again, they've ran through those scenarios so many times in their heads at that level with the money they're making that it's pretty commonplace. They just go out there and do it. They don't
Yep.
think about it.
All right. Well, like I said, I don't want to take up your whole day, but I appreciate you doing the call. So that was the interview with Mitch. He had a ton of good info and tips and strategies and insights to share. So if you found this episode helpful, please take a second to find the podcast in whichever podcast service you use. Leave a rating and a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, leave a comment below about one takeaway or tip you got from Mitch's interview. And most of all, take a second to share these interviews in general with someone you know who's also working on their CPA exams, because these interviews, hearing person after person, the mistakes they made, what they figured out, what finally worked, all collectively, these are the most helpful resource available anywhere for someone trying to figure out how to study effectively for their CPA exams. So thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.